but probably not. All right. All righty, we've got some folks on. We're gonna go ahead and get started. So, oh good. Amanda just told me she believes in miracles. I love that. I love that. I'm learning to. My mom would be very happy to hear you believe in miracles. She wants me to. Anyways, welcome everybody to real estate investing stories. Real humans, real stories, real success, where we talk to investors next door, like our guest today, Lucas Geier, who I met because I engaged his company, Roof Deck Garden, to do our backyard, which I will definitely add some before and afters to this when we promote it. But he was highly referred to me, and then we figured out, oh my gosh, we also went to University of Illinois at different times because he's much younger. But we just had some connections, and then he was like, wait, what do you do? And what, like, you're in real estate, like a lot of people are in real estate. And so we just started talking about where my passion was. And at that point, you and Rosie were still living in your first place?
At the time we did your project, Rosie was still, I think, in Chicago.
Oh, was she? Oh yeah, you hadn't even.
Yeah.
Oh, her,
so we were renting a place there, getting ready to list our place in Chicago. Okay. So that's kind of where the whole journey started, was right around that time.
Which cues us in. Tell us about your real estate story.
Yeah, so the first kind of purchase was our condo in Chicago. Mm-hmm. That was way before I was even considering like the real estate investing side of things. It was more so, it was in the neighborhood we loved. It was already kind of done, which, you know me now, like if I buy something 100% done. And we just kind of stumbled in. It's when I started marketing in the Denver market for my business. So I was splitting time between Chicago, Denver, back and forth. And then finally, when we decided to move to Denver full time, it just kind of worked out that the rental numbers made sense. It was right next to one of the transit stops. So super easy, quick to rent out. And it was only 500 square feet. So also very easy to manage from Denver, since I did all the management on that property for the 2 years that we rented it out.
Okay, so then you moved here. And where'd you live?
So we lived in a lot of places. So we've moved almost every year since my wife, Rosie, and I have been together. So we rented a place out here in the Highlands. Yep. While we were still figuring out what we were going to do with the Chicago condo. Mm-hmm. We kind of fell in love with like Northwest Denver. So knew that we eventually wanted our forever house to be somewhere in Northwest Denver. And that's when the lease was up on our Chicago place. The market was pretty good at that time for what we bought it for. So it's when we decided to sell that to buy something in the Denver market. So that was kind of our first buy in Denver.
And that's the Shoshone property, is that correct?
Yep, the house in Sunnyside.
And you did it 2 years into renting it. So you were able to take those proceeds untaxed. So it wasn't capital gains tax. You didn't even have to worry about a 1031 exchange because you had lived in it 2 of the last 5 years, right?
Yep, exactly. Because we were in there for 3 years, rented it for 2, and then we sold it at that point.
Perfect. And then you use that to buy your Sunnyside home.
Yep.
Which was before we knew one another, because you owned that when we met.
Yep, exactly. So that was kind of our first transaction in Denver. We were still renting at that time because our lease was not up. It didn't kind of time out, right? And it was more so a buy for the future, since it does still need quite a bit of work. So the plan is to kind of completely renovate that property in the future. And that's kind of why we decided to stay renting for that 6-month additional period.
Right. And then, wait, I mean, how much time do we have to spend on St. Rosie? Because Rosie, so Lucas is a general contractor as well as landscape architect, correct?
Yep.
So he now looks at properties and goes, oh, I see the potential. And then Rosie is a 9-to-5 professional who's like, okay, fine. But she's really been a great team member in all of this, right? Coach.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, she's a trooper when it comes to all the moving. as
Yeah.
well as she's the painter whenever we have to do remodels, since that's something that I don't have the patience for.
Yes. That's
So
hilarious.
no, yeah, she's definitely been really the only reason we could get as many as we did in a short period of time, just because she has a good W-2 job where I'm self-employed. So just with financing purposes too, it helped a ton having the W-2 salary.
Yep, the good salary in place. Okay,
Yep.
so then we go on, and that's when we bought townhome one.
Yes. Yep. The one in Jefferson Park.
Yep. And so how'd you pick that?
So it was kind of just, I guess, the easiest next move at the time. Just because we didn't have a ton of capital to put into like a full renovation. And then with what my company specializes in, which is roof decks, we were looking for something with a roof deck that's where we can bring the value. It was a new build. So there wasn't anything we needed to do on the inside. It was really creating that outdoor space, and kind of our idea behind it was there's so many people that we knew so on that was renting an apartment in the city that had a hot tub, outdoor fire pit, some type of outdoor living space, but it was a community space. And we're kind of seeing that maybe their next move would be into a townhome, has a little bit more space, but not the maintenance of a single family home, but still wants those amenities. So we bought that, added the hot tub, fire pit, outdoor kitchen. And that's kind of where we got above market rent in comparison to the other units in the building, as well as having the kind of the 1-year home warranty helped us to know that we wouldn't have a big unexpected expense in the coming year at least.
Right. Right. I mean, I remember talking when we looked at places originally, like it was always about like, how is this going to be as a rental? We know we're going to be there for a year-ish, maybe
Yep.
two.
Yep.
And then, yeah, like you said, it was all new on the inside. So you don't have to do any upgrades there. It's great. It has the warranty, but you were able to really create an amazing space up on the rooftop.
Yep, exactly.
And Lucas has extremely good taste, but he also can pare it down for people like me who want to spend Central Illinois money on things and don't necessarily want to go super high end. But it is something, I think you bring up a good point in Colorado. Everyone's looking for. I mean, we have 12-month a year exterior, like outdoor time, right? I mean,
Yep.
you see it, especially as the temperatures are changing and all that. But having that rooftop is like a great space for people to feel like they're getting an outdoor space without having to pay the premium or the upkeep of being in a single family home.
Yep, exactly. And it was kind of one of our goals in search for that property was to be at least easy walking distance from some type of park as well, just because it didn't have its own yard, but we were right kind of kitty corner from Jefferson Park. So that was a good, especially when we were renting it out, having that, because the renter in there currently has a dog. So just having some type of green space within an easy walkable distance.
Yeah. I hear a lot of consideration for like what a renter is going to want. And I think that's a really smart way to look at it. It's important to look at the numbers, but then also taking into account, like, what is the renter demand, right?
Yep.
Then I'm able to get for it. And then of course, taking into consideration any HOA or party wall agreements and what that looks like. So
Yep.
fast forward, you call me. Hey, Linz, I think we should buy this, right? We're on to 38th.
So in between that
yeah.
and 38th, we bought the ones in Champaign, Illinois.
ILL.
Yeah. So
Okay. Are you as excited about the rentals in Champaign as you are about our basketball team, or where are we at on this?
well, I'm a Wisconsin fan overall.
Oh my gosh, that's
so
right.
yeah.
So
Yeah, but Champaign is actually it was a fun time in college for sure. But then it's also a good rental market. Very, very different than anything we looked at in Chicago or Denver. I mean, single family homes that we got there were under 100,000. But the rents are very high for purchase price, where we're getting 1.2% of like purchase price per month in rent. As well as it's a lot of families. So we're outside of kind of the college town district. So a lot of families being close to schools, and kind of what we're seeing now is that the tenants stay for a lot longer than, like, say, our row home, where it's going to be a young professional that's moving in for a couple of years and
Yeah.
then is moving on from there.
Yeah, where they turn over more. What is, you said 1.2%. What's the rental range in Champaign-Urbana for, is it Champaign or Urbana? It's Champaign.
We have 2 in Champaign, 1 in Urbana.
Okay.
So it's between like $950 and $1,200 a month in rents, and we got one property for like 68,000 up to like 85,000. Where the one that's 85,000 is a 3-bed, 2-bath, in really good shape too. So that one was a good buy. The other 2, I don't know. I'm not convinced yet,
But they're cash flowing, right?
they are. So during the COVID times, with kind of the renter pool we're pulling from there were some issues with collecting rent, but Champaign did do where they did an assistance program where they helped cover some of those months. And since each tenant has gotten back on track with employment, they haven't missed a payment in the last, I would say, like 4 months. So it's been really good, and we've recouped anything that they didn't pay during the COVID period. So overall, there's not much room for appreciation, but it was a good buy at the time because it's giving us almost like our safety blanket of the kind of the cash flow to help cover any unexpected expenses.
And you mentioned us. You have a business partner in this.
Yeah, so once we started going into the Champaign properties is when I partnered with one of my college friends from Illinois, who also has a very good W-2 job, as well as he handles a lot of the like lending and insurance, some of the stuff that I don't have a extreme interest in, I guess.
Yeah.
And it just, at that point too, it just helps scale so much quicker than doing it on our own and forcing Rosie to move 10 more times, I guess, too.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and we'll talk a little bit, how did you guys land on picking Champaign? Was it his proximity? We'll kind of go through these questions as we do your journey, but how'd you end up, picking it? And is it his proximity? Yeah, speak to that.
Yeah, so it was mostly, I was back in Champaign because I still have some friends that live there, and just looking up like what home prices were going for, and then too seeing all the rental rates, and just dug into it deeper. I contacted it's a husband wife team there. One's a realtor, one's a property manager, just to get their opinion too. They actually mentor a lot of U of I students that want to get into real estate investing. And they gave me a lot of info on like certain areas to stay away from, certain properties that are kind of ideal, which was more like the 3-1, 3-2, like just very simple rectangle box that will rent for that 1,100 number. And then one of my good friends that still lives there he's an architect, but does a lot with building as well. So just having someone there that if we had questions on something,
right,
he could go out and take a look at it for us as well.
Right. Yeah. So you felt like you had the network there. It made you more comfortable.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Just having one of my best friends and then another very good friend that also has a background in architecture construction.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a good diversification when we think about how you built out your portfolio, because you did balance it out with this like new higher end property in Denver, Jefferson Park. You have the like fixer upper in Sunnyside that you still own. And then you buy that are more like, let's look at appreciation. What's our potential in the future, right? You're cash flowing the townhome well. And then you buy these 3 that are more cash flow focused.
Yep.
Probably not going to see a super fast appreciation rate. And we don't need to go down all of the reasons why that is, but Illinois is not, doesn't appreciate as fast, and taxes are not a part of that. Okay. So then, is that when we said 38?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so then it was more of a the next one was more of like a business move for
Uh-huh.
our business as well as a real estate investment. So we found a mixed use property on 38th that I don't even know what it was in like the 40 years ago, but it has some history to it that we bought to actually build our office on. But the only way to kind of get financing at that point was to for me and my wife to move into it as our primary residence but it didn't have a kitchen or a full bathroom when we looked at it. So this was when we went with the home renovation loan.
Mhm.
So we had to add a kitchen, add 2 bathrooms, and we're still in permitting for our office, but it just has so much potential of it's mixed use, can be residential, commercial. We can build up to 45 feet in height. Perfect location for the area we service for our business. Um, as well as it just had good bones for the house. We'll see how it holds up over time, but
Yeah.
this has been by far the biggest project. Uh, one of the biggest projects we took on.
I mean, it has to be the biggest.
The Breck condo is close.
Oh, right, right, right. Okay, we're gonna get there. He's currently
Yeah.
sitting in Rosie's she shed, her office.
Yeah.
That's in the back. And Amanda just said St. Rosie is right for sure. And also on this one, St. Allison. So Allison on our team helped you navigate that, get it under contract, which luckily we had this seller that was like, it's fine if it takes time. We want somebody who's gonna actually like live in it and make something of it, not just scrape it, right? And
Yep.
so that process, that lending process ended up taking 60 days. Is that right?
Yeah. It
Yeah.
was like down to the last minute to get it
Yeah.
approved. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of work involved in that.
Yeah. I think that, I you pitched your story as went from one home to 9 in a couple of years, right? But the important thing is that it's real estate investing is pretty simple, but it's not easy, right? I mean, there's
Yep.
so many different steps to it. Simple in that it's hard to mess up if you have the ability to hold, right? I mean, it's real estate, it
Yep.
goes long term, whatever. But yeah, 38 is really cool. I know it's cool to be on a main thoroughfare in your favorite neighborhood.
Yep.
Does not like to leave his like half-mile radius of Northwest Denver. Um, and so then Green.
Yeah, then Green Court.
Yep.
So that one, that one we actually looked at with Martin,
Yep.
and
Martin did that one.
it was the listing photos were all over the place. Like, so it was kind of one that sat on the market for a long time, and timing probably wasn't great for us. But it just kept dropping in price. So we were able to get it. I think we closed on it for 460
Mhm.
for single family. And this is kind of when we started to get more into like the future potential of the property over just like the immediate or like the champagnes where we need immediate cash flow, the row home immediate cash flow. This one's sitting on a 6,200 square foot lot where the house is actually in the back of the lot.
Mhm.
So kind of right now it's still a great rental. We were able to actually convert the garage into an Airbnb unit. So that's like a tiny house Airbnb. But future plans is to split the lot in half and eventually doing either another single family home or kind of scraping both and doing 2 new single family homes.
Yeah. So then you start looking at zoning, right? And what are your opportunities there? And how likely are you getting to get a zoning variance or a zoning change? In this case,
Yep.
it's zoning for what you're looking at doing. This does, and I want to just take a quick pause and talk about what you're doing with the Sunnyside house and then this one with the Airbnb. Are you using the same company for those?
Yep. Same
Okay.
company.
And what's
Yeah.
that
So
company called? Yeah, speak to that a little bit.
Loftium, they're actually based out of Seattle. And what they do is they place a tenant into kind of the main living space. So in Sunnyside, it's a split level home. The tenant occupies the whole first floor, which is a 2 bed, 1 bath with where the kitchen, everything is. And they give them like a discounted rent. So it helps kind of people that maybe couldn't afford that neighborhood move in comfortably into that neighborhood. And with that, they actually get the license for the Airbnb and manage the Airbnb. That in Sunnyside, it's the basement unit. On Green Court, it's the garage we convert into like a tiny house. So it's kind of a win-win that they pay us directly and above market rents. They coordinate placing the tenant. We get kind of approval on that tenant, but then the tenant also gets to have a discounted rent, and then they get a kickback on any cleaning fees for cleaning and managing the Airbnb unit.
Yeah. So yeah, Loftium is the name of that company. And I think it's just more to that like shared economy, right? Mentality. Yep. But then also that does help with density challenges, right?
Yep.
And helps with price point. So I think that that's a very interesting solution for these properties. And I learned about it through you. So, okay. So that's where we're at on Green. And then.
And then it was the Breck condo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this one was probably the most, I guess, offers we put in one area for a given time point, just because we were originally looking at single family homes somewhere in Summit County as a short-term rental. We were just getting outbid or cash offers that we just couldn't compete with at the time. So we ended up finding a 2-bed, 1-bath condo on Main Street in Breck that wasn't touched for 40 years, I would say. Mm-hmm. So we were the only ones, I think, that went in full price on it, which was it was a good deal overall. But this one, when we got in, there's actually like dog shit in the place. The cabinets, wallpaper everywhere. So this was probably the biggest project overall, just because we gutted everything back to the drywall, redid all the flooring, trim, cabinets, counters, bathrooms. Really, there's nothing. The shower is probably the only thing that still is there from the original construction.
And how was it working in Summit County for you?
It was awesome for me, but it was the timing worked out because we closed. It was like right sometime in November. So it was when our business slows down a little bit, or we're restricted a little bit on being on site. So it was me, and we had 2 guys from one of our crews up there for about a month to just kind of get everything done. Yep. So it was a nice getaway for a little bit, but it was stressful because we were trying to get everything done for the seasonal rental. That we had a tenant that was moving in like December 14th, I think it was. So we were down to the wire.
Which was a big pivot, right? You were originally thinking short term. If anyone's watched Breckenridge, the town of, their city council decided to limit the short-term rentals. And so you closed thinking you could short-term rent it?
Yep, exactly. So
you ended up pivoting. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest panic we've had during our real estate investing, just because I didn't look at any numbers, and we should have, as having a backup plan for the rental. But I just had no idea what seasonal numbers were for the area. So it was a lot of going back and forth to the city, because I think it was a day after they put the mandate into effect. So in the end, it worked out because the seasonal market we probably got even a higher rate than we would have if we short-termed. We'll see how it does for the spring, summer months. But really what we did was just built up as much reserves as possible to see how this first full season goes. But yeah, there was a week there where I didn't know what we were going to do with it. So
am I flipping a condo in Breck right now? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, that was a discussion we had.
I'm sure. And that, I mean, we've kind of talked extensively about how that was, whatever, shouldn't have been full onus on you guys for sure. But you did, make the most of it. And it turns out, and I tell people this, I mean, there's a lot of costs with doing the short-term under 30-day rentals, and the monthly furnish can end up being just as lucrative and at times simpler if you have the right tenant in place. So, I mean, we'll evaluate once we're a full year in. Or wait, you are a full year in now. No.
Well, the current
Okay.
tenant is through end of April,
Okay.
and it was definitely, I mean, I think he's reached out once since he's moved in. It's all on auto pay for payments. So it's been actually awesome to have just the ease of someone being there for the full season.
Yeah. And then who did you do that through? Was it through Airbnb or what vendor did you end up using?
Actually, I use Zillow to just
Okay.
list the rental on Zillow. And that's what we're doing. We have it up now on Airbnb as well as using Zillow for looking for the summer months.
For the summer months. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's interesting with you have to pay so much more fees by using an Airbnb or I mean, VRBO has changed their name to Verbo, which is so weird to me. I feel like when I was VRBOing a lot, like we just said it wasn't that hard. And then I started seeing it like as content and reality shows. I was like, are they saying Verbo? Like, is this happening? Very weird rebrand. Interesting. And let us know too, because we can push it out there through the agent networks too, because people might be looking for a summer rental up there.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because I know too, Breck is supposed to finalize their like short-term rental overlay by end of this month, early next month. So we're kind of waiting just because it's so close to the resort and hoping that it might be part of that. And then we're gonna start pushing the seasonal a little bit harder if it's not.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. And then Lucas was like, so my mom's retiring.
Oh yeah. I kind of forgot about this one.
We're under contract right now.
Yeah, we're actually, because we're moving into it next week, I think. Yeah, so this one, same thing, and this is kind of how we're trying to like split up our portfolio, is like a third of newer construction that can be, I guess, more stable without big expenses, a third that's going to be single families that has the potential to add another unit or pop top or something, and then a third that we'll see how the kind of champagne market or going into short terms is the kind of open-ended question on that side. But yeah, so this one was, my mom was actually out here for a little bit, and every time she visits, it's saying, I think I'm going to spend more and more time out here. So we found a new development in Northwest Denver that was doing row homes right on Rocky Mountain Lake Park, and kind of talked to her about it. And this one, we're kind of, the partner I have and my mom are all going to go in on this one together. And this will be one that we're going to do the 30-day short term, or I guess not short term, 30-day rental, fully furnished. And what I just found out too is the zoning on it is actually zoned for hotel use. So I'm currently with the city trying to get a lodger's license for this one to be able to do short term as well. I've just never gone through that process, so I don't know how that's going to pan out yet.
That's new. That I didn't know about the hotel piece. That's interesting.
No, so there's certain zone districts that allow for the lodger's license, and this is actually in that little like quadrant right there.
The things that Lucas will find out or like hop into my text with, like, what about this property? What about this property? I think that what I admire most about you as an investor is that, one, you're willing to take on question marks and like navigate as you go. And I think a lot of that is just your demeanor, right? But then also like, you know where you want to be. And so you know when something qualifies well for you. So you mentioned the 3 different categories. How are you really evaluating properties when you look at the numbers?
Yeah, so the champagne, the lower dollar properties, it's kind of that 1.2% rule. And we want to make sure that we get all of our cash we invested back within 5 years.
Okay.
The row homes, and this is like, so the row homes and the single families are mostly based on doing primary loan. So it's going to be lower cash down. So like the single families, our goal is really for it at the time of purchase, for it to be able to break even and have that potential that in the future we can add those additional units, upgrade, etc. The row home, is where we wanted to cash flow at least $200 with also adding in a 10% management fee. I manage all the properties right now, but just with having like, we're kind of capped on those of it will appreciate it, or it should. And then the prices of rents will
Yeah.
go up as well, but there's not a lot of additional value we can add there. So we want those to be able to make money from the start.
Yeah. Okay. I'm thinking there's probably going to be quite a few questions, and I want to make sure I hit you with some of these more general ones. So thank you, one, for sharing your journey. It's been like, honestly, an honor of mine to be with you on it. And you know, that you trust us, at myself and the team at Live.Laugh to help you navigate through all this. So thank you. What was your biggest fear when you started investing in real estate?
When I first started, it was, I mean, we were barely scraping by to get the down payment. So it was like making sure that nothing is gonna pop up over the next couple months. Now it's probably to make sure my wife doesn't leave me if I force her to move 5 more times. But no,
I
it's
know.
really just
Let
that
Rosie pick the next one.
yeah, exactly. It's really that kind of initial, especially with how the market's going too, like, because I wasn't investing during the last recession. So just the fact of, am I overpaying for this property? Am I investing too much into the initial renovation versus kind of just waiting maybe 5 years down the line doing more of the renovation? So I think just the initial, like putting the capital into it and making sure that like, and which this is what we've done, is built up our reserves more to help with that fear of putting the money into the new property.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what's something you have that not everyone has and should take into consideration for anyone out there who's thinking about this is he can do a lot of it on his own or get it at cost or has the teams to help execute it. Whereas for, you know, a normal person doing investing, you have to really take into account potential delays, things that are out of your control if you're not a contractor.
Yeah, I mean, I say that helps a ton, because being able, especially, and that's kind of why I've stuck to a lot of Northwest Denver's, because that's where a lot of our projects are. So even like having someone that could swing by at the beginning or the end of the day to address some of these minor things that pop up from the properties.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then Amanda just asked, what tools are you using to analyze the deals and also keep track of your portfolio? She said, what tools are you and Rosie using? But I know better.
Yeah, so the track our portfolio is that spreadsheet that you sent over.
Yep.
That just kind of gives, it's almost like the retirement planning tool. And that's where we also do a lot of our goal setting at the bottom of that, is just kind of setting like, this is how many properties we want in this amount of years. And our goal is to get to like 20 is our number. And then from there would be to just upgrade properties versus getting quantity larger at that point. So that's how we track a lot of our portfolio. And then just to like run the numbers and so on. It's mostly spreadsheets right now.
Yeah.
And that's where we're trying to really like dial in our systems based on, since we are trying the short-term rental side, we have the row home kind of dialed in. Also for the single families, our whole thing is like, we're kind of jumping into it and then figuring out what we really need to iron out from our processes to make it more efficient moving forward.
Yeah. So learning as you go and pivoting and tweaking, right?
Yeah.
Let's say, oh, what service are you using for the furnished rentals? Are you using someone to furnish them?
We furnish everything ourselves.
Yeah.
That's probably my
really
favorite part
great
of it.
design eye, and so does Rosie. So they can go into a place. I mean, that's one of the things that's blown me away about you guys, is you can go into a place and really like envision what it's going to be and then execute it. And whether it's like unique built-ins or, you know, that kind of stuff. The house we're building in the mountains, I'm already like, well, if Lucas and Rosie can go up and stay for a week, maybe he would do a couple of small built-ins for us.
Yeah, for sure.
Then I'm like, we can just have him use it. But yeah, being able to see that piece of it. But I think, putting in sweat equity there too. I mean, we're talking about your skill sets that not everyone has, but the ability to just like make the decisions about what furniture at Target's going to make sense, or from their own home, what can they do to make sense? And then I always say invest in photography. That's not expensive to have good photos done.
Yeah, because the Breck condo, I pretty much had everything ordered like and delivered the week that we closed. So that one was a lot of Rosie just trusting me and kind of putting it all together as it was coming in.
Yeah, it's awesome. What would you want someone that was new to real estate investing to know?
So I mean, this is one, like a lot of my friends even first of all, it's like I need 20% down to buy my first property. I think especially with kind of how things are appreciating right now, and just the fact of like it doesn't need to be your forever home. You can buy something that's a starter home, live in it for a couple of years, and then move on from there to something bigger. But then that's how we built our portfolio, is keeping it as rentals. It helps to supplement, kind of, if you want to get a bigger place at that point, it helps to supplement the new mortgage payment, or you can do that a couple times to build up your portfolio that way.
Yeah, I love that. Like, one, you don't need 20%, because 20% in our prices is a lot. It's too much, right? And then two, it doesn't need to be your forever home. Yeah. And getting people to like get that is like, it's okay. This is just going to be your tool to get in and keep growing from that. And then what's your biggest myth you see? Or is it covered in those two elements?
It kind of is covered in those two.
Yeah, for sure. The biggest myth in real estate investing.
I guess too, yeah, from like just like more informative podcasts, real estate agents don't say this, but just the fact of people think that it could be 100% like passive. Like it is passive income, but there is also work that is involved in it. So I think it's people that like see someone with 20, 30 rental properties and they're like, oh, he's just sitting on his couch collecting checks. It's like, you still need to be involved in it. It's not just something that happens overnight and it just shows up to you. So that's kind of my big thing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Yeah, you can't completely abdicate it, right? Like, you can't just give it like trust that it's done. It really is about being involved. And yeah, you can delegate different things, leverage different tools, like Loftium or Airbnb or Zillow with the rentals or whatever it is. But yeah, to just like push a button or buy a course. That's what I hate. I hate that.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything that's like supposed to confuse consumers or sell them on something that's not the truth, like sits it, like my justice driver goes nuts and I'm angry about it. But yeah, that there's like a one size, just take this one course and in one weekend you'll be the most miraculous, real estate investor ever. And yeah, I think that's really good. It's not 100% passive. And to build it to a place where it can be 100% passive, where maybe you have the property managers in place and you really are just touching base with a couple of point people, you're still involved in that level.
Yep, exactly. Because that's what Champaign, like we have property management. That's the only time we've used it. And it does make it easier, but there still is like check-in points to make sure that things are on track versus just handing everything over.
Yeah, oh, that's awesome. So what's next?
That's what I was asking you about. I don't know.
What's next for you?
Yeah, so I don't know. So right now we're kind of debating whether we transition into multifamily and do one of those, if we go with a single family that has the ability to add, because I know like I sat in on the Sunnyside planning meeting last week, and they're big advocates for making all properties in that area as well zoned for ADUs. So to go with something that's a single family we live in for a couple of years, or the row home is the other one as well. So this one is probably gonna be the last one that we move into before we do the renovation on the Sunnyside home. So that's kind of where we're at the point.
Number 10 is the last one you move into.
Yep. And then we're gonna kind of let the cash flow is getting better. And then to possibly in the coming years to refinance and pull some money out of some of the properties that have gone up quite a bit.
Yeah. And leverage that to help with renovation.
Yep.
Yeah. So what would you say to yourself 3 years ago now?
I
Would
wouldn't
you
expect to
believe?
be at this point, I
Yeah.
guess. But I think that's kind of been with like my business and everything is kind of once a goal is set, there's just kind of focused on that. And like myself and Rosie like sacrificed some living conditions over the last couple of years as well to get to this point. So it was definitely not easy, but it was like looking at it now, it's worth it. I'm glad that we went through like these couple years of moving from place to place versus kind of renovating our forever home right away and then trying to invest at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good to be like messy in the middle, work in the trenches for a little bit versus trying to do it once you're in your forever home. That makes total sense.
Yep.
Oh, I had another question for you that I know was going to be so good. I think what's next is a multi and you live in one of the units. That's my vote.
Okay.
I think, we don't have to make a decision now. We're going to continue to evaluate those options, but I think it'll be interesting with zoning and the ADUs, the limitations that are put on ADUs usage if it's not the owner occupant in the front house or in the main house.
Yep. Yeah.
And until the city can really figure that out, I don't know that it gives us what we want.
Yeah. Because there's that risk
Flexibility of
then
it.
at that point.
And
Yep.
I don't find Denver making the best decisions zoning wise for the last, 20 years. I mean, I don't want to go too far into that city council chat right now, but like, I don't see that making a good move for us. It'll be good, but I don't know. They just tend to make things a little more complicated than need be and don't necessarily, I mean, the Airbnb, the short-term rental licensing and now the long-term rental licensing in Denver is certainly one of those things where it's like, you're not benefiting the consumer. We need more housing options. And by doing this, you're not actually providing that. So,
Yep.
well, good. I mean, I think there were such good nuggets. I was writing them down as we went. And I do, like I said, I admire, if anyone has any other questions, we're at 12:45 in case anyone needs to hop off, but I admire you and Rosie and Anthony's tenacity of staying with it, and working through it. And I think that it is like sprint to get to where you need to be. And then you guys can rest, right? Oh, that was my question. You have 20 as a goal. What happens when you have 20? I know you mentioned upgrading the properties, but what happens for you guys, in life, in your business? Like, what is the like kind of bigger goal of having the rental properties?
Yeah. So 20 is kind of the number right now. We'll see what happens once we actually get to that point. But kind of the goal for me is the same thing, to have probably a third of that multifamily, a third Denver, a third short term.
Yep.
We'll see once we get there. Hopefully it's mostly that should be enough to fund the lifestyle we want to live for the rest of our lives. And then it's like, I don't think I'll ever stop working, but it'll be a different feeling once I could be more selective with certain projects. Possibly like, I love doing like the Breck place, doing the short-term rental, reno / furnishing, etc. So I think that would be something I'd be interested in, as well as to those ones that are the 6 short-term properties, maybe one a year, every other year. We do it almost as a flip, that we completely renovate it, stage it, and sell it as a short-term rental to someone that doesn't want to go through that process. So yeah, I'm not totally sure yet, but I know that I couldn't just like sit at home or I can only play so many rounds of golf a year as well, that I'll still have to do something.
Yeah. So work optional, right? I mean, I think that's all of our goals. A lot of us that get into real estate investing have an entrepreneur mindset. So it's not like we want to just golf all the time or just sit around. I know you've mentioned too, serving the community and getting involved in, having the time freed up to do more of those, to use your skill set to serve others. Right. But yeah, having that work optional and being able to get there before you're 80 is awesome. And even 80 is a little dramatic, but a lot of people think about retiring at 65. Well, we've all seen where that doesn't always play out that way, right? Whether it's sudden loss or whatever it is. And so having that kind of freedom before you get to 65, I think is what motivates a lot of us that are in this like investor next door mentality of like, how do we be creative, create a portfolio, get what we need, not necessarily as much as possible, and then build the life we want from it.
Yep, exactly. And that's what I'm trying to do right now too, is join like certain Sunnyside neighborhood committees, just to get more involved with the actual neighborhood itself.
Yep.
So I can help with maybe some of these zoning decisions, or just being a part of the community and kind of helping out wherever I can. Because that's kind of like your business. You guys do so much giving, and that's what I'd like to incorporate into our lives and our company as well.
For sure. Well, thank you. But do you think you'll run for city council?
No.
Could you imagine? You're like, no, I actually want to do things.
So I want Rosie to run for city council, and then I'll pass my ideas through her.
Yeah, there you go. She does feel like more of someone who has the patience for that, right? I mean, I think you and I would just hear a bunch and walk out a lot. So
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I would I wouldn't last long.
Well, Lucas, thank you so much for your time. Again, he owns Roof Deck and Garden. And while they specialize in roof decks, they do landscape solutions and architecture on all different properties. They've even been working in the mountains some, if you have any needs there. They did our backyard. And I think one of the things that we struggled with is we wanted to live in the city, but we wanted a nice outdoor space. So even though it wasn't a rooftop, it's smaller than probably half the rooftops you do. It wasn't a big space, because our house is set so far back, and he was able to give us a kitchen, basically a whole nother main floor, a kitchen, a living space, as well as a dining area, and then all outside. And then also now you redid our front, because once we did the back, I was like, it's like a mullet, like a reverse mullet. It's awful. So then you did the front, and his teams even manage it for us, which was a huge addition for us, because I was like, you're putting all these things in, but they're not going to stay alive. I have no idea. So thank you. It's been so fun to serve you on this journey, but then also just to watch your business grow and grow with you guys. So
awesome. Yeah, thanks for the time.
Oh wait, we need to do I got a boomerang. I know you're all over Insta. I'm joking, but we're gonna boomerang.
Rosie will like it.
I know. Okay, so then here's what you do. We got a high five. Ready?
Yep.
You got to do it. All right.
I did.
It's too late. Ready, set, go.
Yeah.
Nailed it. All right, Lucas, I'll talk to you soon. Actually, I'm going to call you this afternoon, so I'll talk to you then. Oh no, it froze. There he goes. Goodbye.
All right, we're good. Yeah. We'll see ya.